These are 10 cases spanning 8 decades of Hollywood history where stars were involved in deaths, some accidental, some deliberate, and all revealing uncomfortable truths about fame, justice, and consequences. Hollywood's golden age ran roughly from the 1930s through the 1960s, and that era produced 4 confirmed cases of stars involved in killings. Over the years, though, several modern incidents have been misremembered as Golden Age scandals. What you're about to hear covers both the actual Golden Age cases and the more recent tragedies that people often mistakenly group with them, and every detail comes from court records, testimonies, and outcomes that sometimes shocked a nation.
Gig Young, the Oscar winner's final act. Byron Ellsworth Barr was born on November 4, 1913, and built his career under the stage name Gig Young. The roles came steadily through the 40s and 50s, films like Teacher's Pet in 1958 and Come Fill the Cup in 1952, and then in 1969 he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for They Shoot Horses, Don't They? That Oscar marked the beginning of his end. Alcohol had already destroyed much of what he'd built. In 1974, the studios cast him in Blazing Saddles, but fired him within days due to withdrawal symptoms, and Gene Wilder stepped in to replace him. Elaine Williams, his 4th wife, watched the decline and later said the Oscar was literally the kiss of death, the end of the line. September 27, 1978, brought his 5th wedding. Kim Schmidt, a 31-year-old German magazine editor, had known Young for exactly 3 weeks before marrying him. 3 weeks after that wedding, at approximately 2:30 in the afternoon on October 19th, Young shot Kim in the back of the head with a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver and then turned the gun on himself. A building employee at the Osborne Apartments on 57th Street in Manhattan heard the shots, and the bodies weren't discovered until 5 hours later. Police found Young face down on the bedroom floor, still holding the pistol, with his Oscar statuette sitting nearby. A diary lay open to September 27th with "We got married today" written on the page, but there was no suicide note anywhere in the apartment. The ruling came quickly: murder-suicide. Investigators concluded Young had acted on the spur of the moment, and his estate totaled approximately $200,000 when it was all counted up. 64 years old, Oscar winner, 5 marriages. The last one lasted 3 weeks and ended in murder. John Huston, the director who got away with it. John Huston became one of cinema's most celebrated directors and lived from August 5, 1906 to August 28, 1987, leaving behind masterpieces like The Maltese Falcon in 1941, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre in 1948, and The African Queen in 1951. But on September 25, 1933, long before those films existed, Huston was just another Hollywood figure driving on Sunset Boulevard when he struck and killed a pedestrian named Tosca Raulian. Tosca was a Brazilian dancer married to Latin film star Raul Raulian, and her death created an international incident given her prominent connections. What makes the story worse is that earlier that same year, Huston had crashed into a parked car while driving drunk, throwing actress Zita Johann through the windshield and causing her severe head trauma. After killing Tosca Raulian, an inquest absolved Huston of blame. Biographers suggest his father, the prominent actor Walter Huston, helped him avoid courtroom proceedings entirely, and the result was no trial, no charges, nothing. The media attention forced him to flee to Europe, where he reportedly lived as a vagrant for a time, but by 1937 he was back in Hollywood working as a screenwriter. Within a few years, he was directing some of the most acclaimed films in cinema history. A Dead Woman, a career that flourished. That's how it ended for John Huston. Spade Cooley, the king who became a killer. Donald Clyde Cooley was born December 17, 1910, and the entertainment industry knew him as Spade Cooley, the self-proclaimed king of Western swing. 38 Western films featured him, television audiences watched his show, and his band drew crowds across the country. His second wife, Ella Mae Evans Cooley, sang vocals in that band, and she also endured years of beatings that finally drove her to file for divorce on March 17, 1961. April 3, 1961 arrived with Cooley drunk and enraged at the ranch in Willow Springs, Kern County. What happened next is almost unbearable to describe because he forced his 14-year-old daughter Melody to watch while he murdered her mother. Melody's court testimony laid out the horror in detail. When I entered, he was on the phone. He was talking to his business partner, and he said, "Don't call the police." He was real sweaty, and he had blood spots on his pants. He put down the phone and said, "Come in here. I want you to see your mother. She's going to tell you something." Court records documented how Cooley beat his wife's head against the floor, stomped on her stomach, and crushed a lit cigarette against her skin to determine if she was dead. Ella Mae was 37 years old. The Kern County grand jury indicted Cooley on April 26, 1961, and by August 21 that same year, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Unlike John Huston, and unlike what we'll see with some of the others, Spade Cooley actually went to prison. He served less than 9 years before parole came through with support from Governor Ronald Reagan, but at least there was prison time. Here's a detail that seems impossible, but it's true. Spade Cooley remains the only convicted murderer with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, awarded in March 1960 before the murder happened. November 23, 1969 brought a 72-hour furlough, and Cooley played a benefit concert in Oakland that day, received a standing ovation from the crowd, and then suffered a fatal heart attack backstage during intermission. Death came 3 months before his scheduled parole date. He was 58 years old. Lana Turner and the Justified Killing. Lana Turner lived from 1921 to 1995 and stood as one of the true Golden Age stars. The Postman Always Rings Twice in 1946, Peyton Place in 1957, Imitation of Life in 1959. These were major Hollywood productions featuring a major Hollywood name. But Turner's daughter, Cheryl Christina Crane, actually did the killing, and the circumstances would lead to a very different outcome than you might expect. April 4, 1958 was Good Friday, and at approximately 8 o'clock in the evening, something terrible unfolded at 730 North Bedford Drive in Beverly Hills. Turner had been trapped in an abusive relationship for about a year with Johnny Stompanato, a 32-year-old mobster who worked as an associate of crime boss Mickey Cohen, and that evening she tried to end it. Stompanato's response came in the form of threats. He would kill Turner, kill her mother, kill her daughter, and slash Turner's face with a razor. 14-year-old Cheryl heard the commotion from another room, grabbed an 8-inch kitchen knife from the kitchen, and ran towards her mother's bedroom. Turner testified at the coroner's inquest about what Stompanato had done. "He started shaking me badly. He said that if he said for me to jump, I would jump, and he would even cut my face or cripple me." According to the testimony, Stompanato lunged at Turner, and that's when Cheryl stabbed him in the abdomen. The coroner's inquest convened on April 11, 1958, with Jerry Geisler, a famous celebrity lawyer, defending Cheryl. Less than 30 minutes passed before the jury reached their verdict: justifiable homicide. Stompanato's ex-wife filed a $750,000 wrongful death lawsuit that eventually settled in May 1962 for $20,000. Turner's career actually revived after the scandal, and Imitation of Life in 1959 became a box office success.
Cheryl became a ward of the state initially, but was later released, eventually published a memoir called Detour, A Hollywood Story in 1988, became a successful real estate broker, and remains alive today in her 80s. Theories have persisted over the years that Lana Turner actually stabbed Stompanato, and Cheryl took the blame to protect her mother. The police report noted, though, that Turner begged officers to say she had done it rather than her daughter, which would undermine the cover-up theory. Time magazine named the case one of the crimes of the century in 2007. The official record shows a 14-year-old girl stabbing her mother's abuser, and the law calling it justified. Matthew Broderick, a fine of $175. Matthew Broderick was born March 21, 1962, and rose to fame in the 1980s with War Games in 1983 and Ferris Bueller's Day Off in 1986. He was not a Golden Age star. His fame came 50 years after that era ended. August 5, 1987, found Broderick vacationing in Northern Ireland with his girlfriend Jennifer Grey, who'd been his co-star in Ferris Bueller, and they were driving near Tempo, County Fermanagh, at approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon during a downpour. Broderick was behind the wheel of a rented BMW 316 after having stopped for directions. An off-duty policeman looked at their planned route, called it just stupid, and offered to lead them elsewhere, but Broderick declined the offer. Less than a mile after stopping at a gas station, on a straight road with clear visibility, Broderick's car crossed into the wrong lane and collided head-on with a Volvo. Anna Gallagher, age 28, was driving that Volvo. Her passenger was her mother, Margaret Doherty, 63 years old and wheelchair-bound with multiple sclerosis for 5 years. Both women died. Matthew Broderick's memory of that day is blank. I don't remember the day. I don't remember even getting up in the morning. I don't remember making my bed. What I first remember is waking up in the hospital with a very strange feeling going on in my leg. Jennifer Grey wrote in her 2022 memoir that the car accident in Ireland was top 3 traumas of her life, maybe top 1, and described how one minute they were going down the road with music playing, and the next minute everything was different. The initial charge was causing death by dangerous driving, which carried up to 5 years per death, but that charge got reduced to careless driving. February 15, 1988, brought a guilty plea from Broderick. The fine was £100, approximately $175, and he wasn't even required to appear at trial. Martin Doherty lost both his mother and his sister that day, and he called the verdict a travesty of justice. His words were, he got the same punishment he would have got if he'd run over cattle. No record exists of any civil lawsuit or settlement. Doherty noted in 2003 that there had been a note after the accident from Broderick saying how sorry he was, but no other contact ever came. 2 women dead, $175 paid. Rebecca Gayheart, the Noxzema Girl's Nightmare. Rebecca Gayheart was born August 12, 1971, and became known in the 1990s as the Noxzema Girl, with appearances on Beverly Hills 90210 and roles in Scream 2 in 1997, Urban Legend in 1998, and Jawbreaker in 1999. Like Broderick, she was not a Golden Age star. June 13, 2001, in Hollywood, Los Angeles, brought a tragedy involving 9-year-old Jorge Cruz Jr., who was chasing his soccer ball across a street approximately 160 feet from the nearest crosswalk. Several cars stopped to let him cross. Gayheart was driving a 1996 Jeep Grand Cherokee and swerved into the left turn lane to pass the stopped vehicles. Witnesses estimated her speed at over 40 miles per hour when she hit Jorge Cruz Jr., and he died the following day at Los Angeles Children's Hospital from severe head injuries. A 2019 podcast captured Gayheart's description of her mental state after the accident. If a car in front of you hits their brakes and they stop, you don't go around them to avoid hitting them. You hit them because there's a reason they're stopping. I just didn't want to live after that accident. That's what it came down to.
I couldn't handle it at all, so I spent about a year just trying to kill myself, basically. The charge was misdemeanor vehicular manslaughter, and on November 27, 2001, she pled no contest. 3 years probation, a $2,800 fine, 750 hours of community service, and a 1-year license suspension made up the sentence. $10,000 went towards funeral expenses plus hospital costs, and a civil worth-death lawsuit settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. Her career shifted dramatically from leading film roles to minor television appearances, but she founded the Butterfly Ball fundraiser for Chrysalis, a homeless employment service, which has raised over $16 million. Unlike some of the others we've discussed, Gayheart has spoken openly about the crushing guilt and her struggle to survive it.
Robert Blake is considered a celebrity from 2 different eras. Born Michael James Gubitosi on September 18, 1933. He died on March 9, 2023, after appearing in 40 Our Gang shorts, The Little Rascals, from 1939 to 1944. In 1948, he had an iconic scene in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, selling Humphrey Bogart the winning lottery ticket. Blake's major success came later, though, in Cold Blood in 1967, and an Emmy Award for the television series Beretta, which ran from 1975 to 1978, made him a household name. The killing occurred in 2001. May 4, 2001, found Blake and his wife of 6 months, Bonnie Lee Bakley, age 44, dining at Vitello's Italian restaurant in Studio City, California. Blake parked his 1991 Dodge Stealth on a side street behind a construction dumpster under a burned-out streetlight. After dinner, Blake claimed he walked Bakley to the car and then returned inside to retrieve his handgun, which he said he'd left at their booth. When he returned, Bakley had been shot twice in the right cheek and shoulder. The murder weapon was a 9mm Walther P38 with the serial number filed off, found in a dumpster nearby. It was not Blake's gun. The case gets complicated here. A busboy contradicted Blake's story, saying he cleared the table and found no gun sitting there. 2 stuntmen testified that Blake had tried to hire them to kill Bakley. But here's the thing. Gunshot residue analysis found only 4 to 5 particles on Blake's hands, and defense experts testified that firing the weapon would have left nearly 100 particles. The prosecution admitted they had no forensic evidence linking Blake to the murder. March 16, 2005 brought the criminal trial verdict, not guilty of murder and solicitation. The jury deadlocked 11-1 for acquittal on a second solicitation count. Jury foreman Thomas Nicholson explained their reasoning. They couldn't put the gun in his hand. They could never connect all the links in the chain. District Attorney Spade Cooley disagreed strongly. Quite frankly, based on my review of the evidence, he is as guilty as sin. He is a miserable human being. 8 months later, November 18, 2005, a civil trial reached a different conclusion and found Blake liable for wrongful death with an order to pay $30 million, later reduced to $15 million on appeal. Bankruptcy came in February 2006, with Blake reporting $3 million in debts. California filed a $1.1 million tax lien against him in 2010, and he ended up living on Social Security and his Screen Actors Guild pension. When Blake died of heart disease on March 9, 2023, at age 89, the Academy excluded him from its In Memoriam segment. The murder of Bonnie Lee Bakley officially remains unsolved.
What do these 10 cases tell us when you look at them together? Most celebrity-involved deaths are vehicular. Broderick, Gayheart, Neal, Huston, and Brandy all killed people in car accidents, and the legal consequences ranged from a $175 fine to $2.6 million in restitution. Domestic violence claimed lives in the Spade Cooley and Gig Young cases, both involving alcohol-fueled rage ending in the deaths of wives. But the most striking pattern is the disparity in outcomes.
Spade Cooley received life imprisonment for beating his wife to death. Matthew Broderick paid $175 for killing 2 women. Martin Doherty's observation haunts these cases. He got the same punishment he would have got if he'd run over cattle. The true Golden Age, the 1930s through 1960s, produced only 4 cases: Gig Young, John Huston, Spade Cooley, and the Lana Turner incident. The others happened decades later in a different Hollywood. John Huston went on to direct masterpieces. Matthew Broderick became a Tony Award winner. Vince Neil admitted he got laid and drank beer during his jail time. Robert Blake was acquitted criminally, but found liable civilly, and the murder remains officially unsolved. Only Spade Cooley went to prison for the full weight of his crime, and even he was paroled after less than 9 years. He remains the only convicted murderer with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. These are the facts, these are the cases, these are the outcomes that reveal uncomfortable truths about Hollywood, justice, and the price or lack of price that fame sometimes demands.